The knock came at 1:17 a.m. Not loud, not frantic, just deliberate. 3 slow knocks. The kind that assumes the door will open. I was already awake. Insomnia, and I had been close friends for years. I stared at the ceiling for a moment, listening. No second knock. No shouting. Just silence. I lived alone in a modest apartment on the edge of the city, far enough from downtown to avoid attention, close enough to keep my job at the hospital manageable. I didn't expect visitors. Especially not at that hour. Especially not him. When I opened the door, my breath caught. Adrian Moretti stood in the hallway. White. Mid-30s. Tall. Broad shoulders under a black overcoat. Dark hair slightly disheveled. Jaw tight. Eyes sharp but unfocused in a way that immediately told me. He'd been drinking. Not sloppy drunk. Controlled drunk. Which was somehow more dangerous. He didn't smile. He didn't greet me. He just looked at me like he'd walked miles through fire and finally found water. "I need you," he said. No hello. No explanation. Just that. 5 years ago, I would have folded instantly. 5 years ago, I would have let him in without hesitation. 5 years ago, I was still the woman who believed loving a man like Adrian was survivable. "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly. "You're the only one I trust," he replied. His voice wasn't slurred, but it was raw, stripped of its usual authority. Adrian Moretti didn't trust people. He commanded them. He ruled an empire that thrived on fear, loyalty, and silence. Men twice his age lowered their voices around him. Politicians shook his hand carefully. And yet here he was, on my doorstep, alone. "You have men for this," I said. "I don't want my men," he replied. That made my stomach tighten. "Why?" I asked. His gaze shifted past me briefly, scanning the hallway, calculating, then back to my eyes. "Because if I go to them," he said quietly, "it becomes war." The weight of that statement settled heavily between us. War. Not metaphorical. Not dramatic exaggeration. Literal. "Come inside," I said before I could stop myself. He stepped past me carefully, like he was entering something fragile instead of a cramped apartment with faded hardwood floors and mismatched furniture. I closed the door, locked it, turned back. He removed his coat slowly, and that's when I saw it. Blood. Not soaked. Not dripping. But there. Dark against the cuff of his sleeve. My pulse spiked. "Are you hurt?" "No," he said. "Lie." I could see the tension in his shoulders. The way he was holding his side slightly too rigid. "Sit down," I said, pointing toward the couch. He didn't argue. That was new. 5 years ago, I was a surgical resident finishing night shifts with coffee and adrenaline. He used to wait outside the hospital sometimes. Said he liked knowing I was safe. Back then, I didn't ask safe from what. I grabbed the small first aid kit from under my sink. "Take off the jacket," I said. He hesitated, just for a second, then complied. The wound wasn't deep. A graze across his ribs. "Bullet. Close call. You need stitches," I said. "No hospital." "You think I'm reporting you?" "I think I don't want records." "Fair." I cleaned the wound in silence. He didn't flinch, didn't react, but I could feel him watching me. Not with suspicion, with something else. Something heavier. "You shouldn't have come here," I murmured. "I know. Then why did you?" He leaned back against the couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Because I don't know who ordered it." The air shifted. "Ordered what?" "The shot." I stopped moving. "You're telling me someone inside your circle tried to kill you?" "Yes." "And you came to me?" "Yes." "Why me?" I asked. The question wasn't about medicine. It was about history. He turned his head slowly to look at me. "Because you don't want anything from me." That landed harder than it should have. 5 years ago, I wanted everything from him. Time. Honesty. A life that didn't require constant fear. I left because he refused to choose me over the empire. I left, I reminded him quietly. "I know. You chose power." "I did. And now." His gaze darkened. "Now I don't know who I can stand beside." The honesty in his voice unsettled me. Adrian was many things. Cold. Ruthless. Strategic. But rarely uncertain. "You think someone close to you betrayed you," I said slowly. "Yes. And you trust me more than them." "Yes." "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. He watched me for a long moment, like he was weighing how much truth to reveal. Then, "Because you walked away when you realized what I was becoming," he said. I blinked. "What does that have to do with trust?" "Everything." Silence filled the room. Heavy. Loaded. "You hated what I was turning into," he continued quietly. You didn't try to control it. You didn't try to profit from it. You just left. My throat tightened. I left because I couldn't survive it. I know. I finished dressing the wound. Step back. You'll live, I said. I wasn't worried about that. I exhaled slowly. Then what are you worried about? He stood. Too close suddenly. The space between us narrowing without permission. I'm worried, he said quietly, that if I fall, the only place I feel human is here. The words hit somewhere deep and dangerous. You can't say things like that, I whispered. Why? Because I remember who you were. And who was that? The man who told me love was weakness. He didn't look away. I was wrong. My pulse pounded. You don't get to show up bleeding at my door and rewrite history. I'm not rewriting it, he said softly. I'm admitting it. Outside, sirens wailed faintly into distance. Not close, but enough to remind us. His world never slept. If someone betrayed you, I said, forcing logic back into my voice, you should be somewhere secure. I am, he replied. The implication was clear. Here. I shook my head. This is reckless. Yes. Dangerous. Yes. Then why are you still standing so close to me? His hand moved before I could step back. Not grabbing. Not forcing. Just resting lightly at my waist. Testing the boundary. Because you're the only one who's ever looked at me without fear, he said. My breath caught. And now, he asked quietly. I met his gaze. I don't fear you, I said honestly. But I fear what letting you back in would cost me. The silence between us deepened. Charged. Unresolved. I didn't come here to take, he said softly. Then why did you come? He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him through the thin fabric between us. Close enough that one wrong decision would undo 5 years of distance. I came, he said quietly, because I don't know how to survive this alone. And in that moment, I realized the most dangerous thing about a ruthless mafia boss wasn't his power. It was his vulnerability, and I had just let it inside. He doesn't move his hand from my waist. He doesn't tighten it either. It rests there like a question. I don't know how to survive this alone. The words repeat in my head. Adrian Moretti, the man who commanded fear with a glance, standing in my apartment admitting uncertainty. 5 years ago, he would have swallowed those words before letting them reach air. 5 years ago, he chose his empire over me. And now he's standing in front of me, wounded, punted, and asking for something dangerously close to forgiveness. You're not alone, I say carefully. You have an entire organization built on loyalty. His jaw tightens. Loyalty built on fear fractures faster than love built on trust. That lands. Hard. You think someone in your inner circle set you up? I say, yes. And if they find out you're here? They won't. You can't guarantee that. His eyes flicker briefly, calculation layered over instinct. No, he admits. The admission unsettles me more than if he'd insisted he had everything under control. Because for the first time, he doesn't. You can't stay here long, I say quietly. I don't intend to. Then what do you want from me? His gaze lowers slightly, not submissive, just honest. Perspective. That's it. And clarity. I step back gently, breaking the contact at my waist. He lets me. That's new too. Start talking, I say. He exhales slowly, running a hand through his hair. Something I've only seen him do in private. There's been tension between 2 of my captains for months, he explains. One loyal to legacy, one hungry for expansion. And you? I chose expansion, which means I threaten the balance. I cross my arms, leaning against the counter. You're surprised someone tried to eliminate competition? No, he says evenly. I'm surprised it happened before I saw it coming. Which means you were distracted. His eyes lift to mine. Yes. By what? I ask. A long pause. Then, regret. The word softens the room in a way gunfire never could. You don't get to come here and confess regret like it's a solution. I say, though my voice lacks the sharpness I want it to have. I know, he replies. Then why now? Because when the shot was fired, he says quietly, my first thought wasn't who did it. I hold his gaze. It was you. My pulse spikes. That's manipulative. It's honest. The silence stretches. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy. You left because I was becoming someone you couldn't stand beside, he continues. And I hated you for it. I flinch slightly. I know. But when you left, something else happened. What? You were no longer leverage. I frown. Leverage. Yes, he says calmly. No one could use you against me. Because you walked away. The logic is cold, strategic, terrifying, and somehow protective. I didn't leave for your protection. I say. I know, he answers. But you protected me anyway. I moved past him toward the small kitchen, needing distance. You can't rebuild something like this in one night, I say. I'm not asking to. Then what are you asking? He turns slowly, eyes steady. I'm asking for the chance to prove I can be more than what you feared. The sirens outside fade into silence. The city settles. But inside my apartment, the tension remains. You chose power, I remind him. Yes. And you liked it. Yes. And now? His gaze doesn't waver. Now I'm tired of ruling a room and feeling nothing. That confession is more intimate than any touch. You think I can fix that? I ask softly. No, he says immediately. I think you're the only person who reminds me I was human before I became a title. My defenses waver. Just slightly. You're still dangerous, I say. Yes. You're still capable of violence. Yes. You're still at war. His expression darkens. For now. And when the war ends. I ask. Then I decide what kind of man I want to be. And you couldn't decide that before? No. Why? Because before, he says quietly, stepping closer again but slower this time, I believed control was survival. And now, I'm realizing isolation isn't. He stops an arm's length away. No touch this time. Just proximity. Choice. You can't stay here tonight, I say finally. I know. But you can't go back to your penthouse either. His lips curve faintly. I didn't plan to. I study him carefully. You have safe houses, I say. Yes. Go to one. I will. And then I dismantle what needs dismantling. The way he says it isn't about blood. It's about structure. Power realigned. And me? I ask quietly. He doesn't hesitate. You don't get dragged into this. That's not what I meant. His gaze softens. Then what did you mean? I swallow. Am I part of whatever comes after? He steps closer, but still doesn't touch me. Yes, he says. Not possessive. Not demanding. Certain. That's not enough? I whisper. Then tell me what is. I hold his gaze. Choice, I say. If I'm in your life again, it's not because you need refuge. His jaw tightens slightly. It's because you choose me. The room feels smaller. The air thicker. He nods once. Then I'll earn that. How? By surviving this, he says calmly. Without becoming worse. The simplicity of that promise feels heavier than any vow. He moves toward the door. Pauses. Looks back at me. Lock this behind me, he says quietly. I will. And don't answer it again at 1:17 a.m. Despite everything, I almost smile. Don't make me. He opens the door. The hallway light spills in briefly. Then he steps out. And he's gone. I lock the door. Lean against it. Exhale slowly. 5 years ago, I loved a man who chose power over us. Tonight, that same man stood bleeding in my apartment and admitted he didn't know how to survive alone. That doesn't erase history. It doesn't undo damage. But it changes something fundamental. Because vulnerability from a ruthless man isn't weakness. It's risk. And for the first time, he took that risk with me. 3 days later, the news breaks quietly. One of his captains retires. Another shifts allegiance. There's no war. No explosion. Just restructuring. Strategic. Clean. Controlled. And that night, at 9 p.m., my phone buzzes. Not 1:17 a.m. Not desperate. Adrian. Dinner. Public place. No chaos. Your choice. I stare at the message for a long time.